Live. Hello, everybody, and happy Memorial Day. And by that, it sounds like a paradox, it sounds like a contradiction, because it is. Today is not a day of happiness, today is a day of remembrance, where we remember those we have lost in foreign and domestic wars that have served in our military to protect our freedoms here in the United States. People so avid that they are willing to give their lives for their country so that we can preserve our freedoms. How amazing is that, ladies and gentlemen? And you might notice that there are so many people right now that are saying, we want our freedom, we want our freedom, we want to protect our lives in this country, yet they still refuse to wear a mask. Funny. Memorial Day weekend is a big celebration in the United States. We use it to celebrate to mark the beginning of summer, really. It is the beginning of the actual summer. This is the ceremonial beginning of summer. But it's also a day that we should all remember. My grandfather served in the military during World War II. He thankfully survived that ordeal. However, I guess my grandmother, so this is what happened. My grandmother, she had a son with someone who went off to war, and he died in the war, World War II, the Great World War II. That's my Uncle Lance, who has since passed. And then, since he didn't come home, she got married to my grandfather, who, soldier came home from the war. Let's get married. Let's have kids. Let's start the American dream. And so one day, perhaps 70, 80 years later, people could say, okay, boomer. 50, 60, 70 years later, okay, boomer. Okay, boomer. You're old, and that's why I like to say that. Because, okay, boomer, your ideas are outdated, even though you're the children of the greatest generation that ever lived in the United States and probably ever will be the greatest generation, on account of the fact that, people are asked they were asked to go to war, they were asked to stay at war for years and years. People were told to give up meat, give up clothes, give up certain fabrics and materials so that they could donate them to the war effort. And today people are just having a problem just staying indoors and staying away from each other. Because that's the safest bet right now, ladies and gentlemen. Hello, Tatiana Wilkinson. It's just me and you here today. Everybody's out at the pool parties right now during COVID. I don't know if you saw those videos over the weekend of people yesterday in Missouri and other places that are open having these crazy, unwieldy, irresponsible pool parties. It's like, listen, have a pool party, but have like 12 people and then have them all separated. Like, it's not hard. It's not hard. It's not hard. That's the thing. We're asked to do something super easy, yet people are just like, this makes me feel a little bit out of my comfort zone, and I don't like that, and I'm used to getting everything that I want all of the time, so I'm just going to pretend that something like this doesn't exist. A highly contagious airborne virus that causes a potentially fatal illness. So, hey, guys, it's so easy. Just stay 6 feet away, wear a mask. You could do that. I know you can. I know you can. I synced it. I hate when people say, oh, well, look at all those people being irresponsible. We'll find out in 2 weeks what happens with them. But you know what? It's not even the point, because those people might not even get sick, and it's like, so they won't learn their lesson. They'll just spread it to someone else, and then some of those people might not even get sick at all. I wonder, though, I am curious as to see how the irresponsible behavior leads to irresponsible and avoidable deaths. Yeah, this is just, you know what? America, if this is it, if this is the last moment, if this is our death rattle, it's kind of a puttering out. I think people are just like, yeah, I could do this for like a month, maybe not. Nobody could do it for as long as it's needed because, we're American. We have like the worst. We're among the worst countries of testing. You know, today's a day of memory and remembrance. We should really remember the movies that help bolster our image in the world. Maybe this war isn't the greatest war we've ever fought. I think that one of the greatest wars we ever fought was the Gulf War in 1993, I think it was. Only 91 people, Americans, died in that war, guys. Which is, if one dies, that's too many. But the fact that we were able to keep it down to about 91 people in the original Gulf War, George Bush Sr., George Herbert Walker Bush. Guys, we're talking about Memorial Day movies this week. Today, we talk about movies every day at noon here on Aristotle Full Throttle, except this Wednesday I'm going to the beach, guys. So I might do this show from the road. I'm going to go to the beach. I'm going to wear a mask. I'm going to stay away from people. It's going to be that simple. And you guys can do that too. I know you can. I saw this really cool thing where people were, they're called social distance, physical distance bubbles or bumpers. So they're basically like a table with wheels that you stand in the center of, and it's got like a big inflatable bumper around the side. So it's essentially 6 feet away from any other human being, or at least 3.5 feet. So there's like 3.5 feet between you and the edge of it. And then there's 3.5 feet between everybody's edge. So you can never get closer than 6 feet to anybody. I thought that was a cool idea. Good workaround. People out there with their drinks, just resting them on there, walking around town, looking like idiots, but also being responsible. I had this funny discussion the other day with somebody. It was really interesting because they were like, why do we need all these hospital rooms? Why do we need all of these ventilators? Not that many people are getting sick. And it was like, that's because that's how numbers work when you're trying to stem a tide. You're stemming the tide by physically distancing, but you're also preparing for the worst. So if you're prepared for the worst, but also doing everything you can to create the least worst outcome, then you're doing it right. You should have a surplus of ventilators. You should have a surplus of hospital rooms. What you don't want is too few. So don't complain that they are too many. I don't understand the logic behind that. All I understand from a personality like that is they're just going, I don't like not doing the things I always like to do. And you telling me that I have to alter my behavior by standing 6 feet away from somebody? Come on, bro. I just find that this whole thing an incredible social experiment of how it's a very simple request. Stay home if you can. Wear a mask all of the time outside. Stay 6 feet away. Super, super easy. But people just, until it happens to them, this is a situation that I here at Aristotle Full Throttle have been promoting since the inception of my channel on AristotleFullThrottle.com. It's on YouTube. I should really upgrade. I'm on TikTok now, guys. Follow me on TikTok. That's a fun one. You can make like mini little sketches and stuff. At Aristotle Dreyer. You can probably find me under Aristotle Full Throttle on there too. But go on TikTok. Go on Twitch. I'm on Aristotle Full Throttle there. And Notorious DIT, welcome. I'm still trying to figure out which service I should use where I could simulcast on multiple platforms. This is the goal, guys. Multiple platforms: Twitch, Instagram, Facebook Live, YouTube, and TikTok. 5 at once. If I can do all 5 of those at the same time, I might need to use multiple devices, which I do have. But then then there's the problem we were talking about where there's bottlenecking. So all of that data is just going to go into one internet connection from several different devices, and they're all going to have to like compete with each other. And that's how it works. But getting back to the original Gulf War, guys, George Herbert Walker Bush, not the greatest president, but not the worst either. The worst being the current one. Lest you have any doubt, we are currently under the worst presidential administration in the history of the United States. Lest you have any doubt. Lest you have any doubt. No doubt whatsoever. There should be none. If there is doubt, check your priorities. Yeah, the beaches, Tatiana. The beaches are open here. However, it's kind of a limited situation. You gotta stay distant. You gotta keep it moving, apparently. But there's phases of the opening here. Mayor Garcetti is the mayor of the city of Los Angeles. Yet the county of Los Angeles has sort of opened things, but the mayor is like, don't do all the things that you can. He says basically, just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Just because you're permitted doesn't mean it's smart. You know? I am permitted to hold my breath indefinitely. Should I? No. Maybe. That's what Michael Hutchins did. So I'm talking about the Gulf War. And there are movies about the Gulf War, the original Gulf War, which I found fascinating. There are some good ones. I do believe there was a movie called Three Kings. Did you guys see Three Kings? With Ice Cube, Marky Mark, and George Clooney. That was a good one. That was about a heist. That was a 1999 film. That was about kind of a gold bar heist. Except there's a kind of funny problem with that movie is that gold bars weigh a lot. They're literally one atomic element off from lead. That's why all the alchemists during the medieval times. I'm good at talking. That's why I have a talk show. During those times, that's why alchemists would try to change gold from lead to gold. They would try to turn lead because it was weighed basically the same. It's like very similar. So it's a heavy thing. So a guy carrying a gold bar is literally equivalent. It's actually heavier than a lead bar. So when you see someone running around with like bags of gold bars, that's just a joke. They must be the world's greatest power lifters, or they are adrenalized by stealing all that gold. Why not? You go and steal all that gold, you might as well steal a bag full of lead. It's insane. What's up, Is This Will? We were just talking about the atomic difference between lead and gold. Welcome. Between, what is it, PB and AU? I don't even know. Check my science on that. Check my memory of my high school periodic table, which has since changed drastically, actually. I've seen the new periodic tables, and I don't understand. That's like these people trying to teach their kids at home these days because it's all the homeschooling, because on account of all the schools being closed, on account of the COVID. People trying to teach their kids math, they don't even do the same math anymore. They're doing math on, I need my TI-85 to do a math problem right now. But let me tell you something. That first Gulf War was only 91 days long or something. Or 93 days, something. It was so short, it was a mission accomplished. I would like to say that George Herbert Walker Bush, though he was not a good person, interestingly enough, George Herbert Walker Bush was the head of the CIA. That guy knew some secrets. It was crazy. He also, the former head of the CIA, the one that he replaced, get this, guys, this is crazy. This might change your whole concept of information and how we consume it. The head of the CIA started the first network television channel, ABC. So the head of the CIA, I believe, in the 50s and 60s or 70s, he was the first originator of network television. What did this guy know? The Central Intelligence Agency head was like, I need to start a channel, an actual network of that we can use to disseminate information effectively to the American people, and that is ABC. And hopefully in 20, 30 years, Walt Disney Company buys it from me and then turns it into candy. Hey, Kelsey, Alabama. We're just talking about Mickey Mouse and candy. There's another movie called Jarhead about the Gulf War. That was a pretty good one. It showed you kind of the insanity that you go through from trying to be... that might have been the second Gulf War, actually. On account of the fact we're still in a Gulf War. Sorta. We still are in two wars. We are in the longest running wars in American history that started in like 2003, and it is now 2020. Yet people seem to just completely forget. They're like, oh yeah, Afghanistan and Iraq. Who would have thought that we would still... We're still there, guys. Does it not blow your mind that we're still there? It should. This war is like, it's insane. It's still going. And I got a problem with the second Iraq war because, dig this, guys. The second Iraq war, I just want to give a little history lesson on the insanity and absurdity of how our country decides to do things in a wartime situation. The second time we invaded Iraq. The second time, Iraq, whatever you want to say. George W. Bush, son of Herbert Walker Bush, son of the Viper. There's a song called Son of the Viper I wrote with my band earlier years ago. Go Google that. It tells you the whole story of that. Son of the Viper. George W. Bush said, okay, guys, listen, Iraq, they are a clear and present danger. We need to take them down. We need to go into Iraq. The world said, what? What do you mean? North Korea is way more dangerous. There are several other countries that are way more high up on the list of actual threats to national security. So that got thrown to the side. And then he said, Saddam Hussein, the leader of Iraq, he's got weapons of mass destruction. We're going to go in there and we're going to go find those weapons of mass destruction and destroy them. And if they don't destroy them, we're going to invade. There was a thorough check. There were no nuclear weapons. There were no chemical weapons. There were no weapons of mass destruction being made in Iraq. That was strike two. And then he said, listen, guys, Iraq, they had so much to do with 9/11. They didn't. They did not like Al-Qaeda necessarily. They were not friendly with Al-Qaeda. They were not friendly with the Taliban. They were trying to keep their own lid on their own situation and run their own joint. Meanwhile, these other countries, like Saudi Arabia, was a haven for all of these people, for all of these. I'm going to go off on this for a sec because we got to get some perspective on this. The place that we're buddy-buddy with, Saudi Arabia, on account of money, oil, and all that, they're a haven for all of these. For 19 of the 20 hijackers were from like Saudi Arabia, guys. Kind of nuts. They hung out there. That was their hangout. That's our buddy though. So we can't call them out on the floor. We can't say, hey, you guys, can't call them on the carpet and be like, you guys are a problem. No. We blamed Iraq for some reason. And the only reason why we had like 3 and 4 strikes against all of these things that none of them were true. They were not the number one threat against us. They were not harboring weapons of mass destruction. They did not have anything to do with 9/11. Also, the final Hail Mary pass that they made for making the argument to go invade Iraq was that, I know this is a crazy history lesson, but totally switching platforms here, but I'm going to tell you something. They said the fourth one, which was the Hail Mary pass, George W. Bush said, look, we're going to go in there, we're going to mess shit up, and they're going to treat us like liberators because they're under such a harsh regime, and we're just going to go in there and liberate these people, and they still hate us. They still hate us. We're still fighting insurgents in Iraq. So this is a travesty. This is a war crime. This is an unjust war. It is a problem. It's stupid. It's stupid. Generations before actually were forced to go to war. The only reason I can understand or comprehend is that we went to the second Iraq War with George W. Bush. The only reason why, which is the number one reason why historically anybody has really ever gone to war in like sort of feudal systems, was because Saddam Hussein put a hit out on George Herbert Walker Bush, George W. Bush's father. That's like a known fact. Saddam Hussein was trying to assassinate George Bush Sr., and because George Bush Sr. did the first Iraq War, which actually accomplished the mission, they went in, they pushed Iraq out of Kuwait, and then we left. And it was over. And then it was declared over in like 90 days, guys. It was insane. Iraq invaded Kuwait. We said, hey, get the hell out. They said no. We sent in troops, pushed them out. Then we were done and we left. That's actually a commendable situation. We were defending our interests. We were defending, quote, the interests of the region, debatably. And we finished. We used force minimally and took care of the problem and left. But now the second time around, there was no reason to. There still hasn't been a reason, and we're still stuck there. So people, thank those people in your lives that are willing to support this country through the military, but vote those a-holes out who are sending them to frivolous wars. This is the point of all of this. It's just complete insanity, and we need to do better. We need to be better, and to quote Melania Trump, be best. And that is my rant on that. I did like Jarhead. Jarhead's good. There's all those other movies about the Gulf War that I think one of my favorites is definitely Zero Dark 30. Well, that was about the assassination or the killing of the supposed killer. And I have so many thoughts. Catherine Bigelow is one of my favorite directors of all time, particularly war film directors. She did Zero Dark 30 and The Hurt Locker, really good movies. Hurt Locker being about those folks that are kind of nuts enough to disarm bombs and improvised explosive devices, IEDs, in war zones. These people are crazy, but we need them. They're adrenaline junkies, and they're mostly, and sometimes they're even Hawkeye. Is This Will says the plans of the Pentagon draws up preemptively in the event of war. The one Iran required attacking from the east and west via Iraq and Afghanistan. Yeah, some of those strategies are really amazing, Will. I will never forget the strategy that Norman Schwarzkopf called in the original Iraq War, which was just insane. It was just brilliant, and it was ingenious, quick. See, in war, guys, I recommend a book, and it's like thousands of years old. It's called The Art of War, and it's by Sun Tzu. He was this dude, and he understood how humans behave, and he understands just basically, like, it's just basic logic. It's just steps toward achieving a goal. And it applies to everything in life. If you want to go on a diet, if you want to improve your life in any aspect, career-wise, personal relationships, anything like that, there are ways to overcome certain things. And you can use just certain insecurities, certain problems that you might be having in your life. There are ways to overcome them by applying simple logical axioms that were created by Sun Tzu in The Art of War, which is like 2,000 years old. But those really apply if you have that kind of mind. I mean, if you have that kind of way of looking at things, it's definitely an interesting spin on how to approach a problem. In chess, if you're playing a game of chess, if you're playing a video game, I used to apply The Art of War to video games. It would really piss off my friends, because we would play, my former bandmates actually, we would go on the road. I had a modded Xbox. This is like 10, 12 years ago. I had a modified Xbox with all these games ripped to the hard drive. Don't tell anybody because, that breaks all sorts of copyrights. And I had GameFly. Don't tell anybody. I had GameFly, and I would rip the games from GameFly to my Xbox hard drive, and then I could just take this Xbox and plug it into a hotel room, and then me and my bandmates, we could just play video games against each other. So I'm not a big sports fan. Sports. Hey, come with me. I play sport with you. Let's play tennis. Hey, I like to play tennis. I play sport. I am sports. I'm not a big sports guy. Big movie guy, though. I don't understand why, sports are considered... If you know everything about a sport, you're like, oh, yeah, he did. He swung, he batted a 381 in the 1997. If you know that stuff, it's not necessarily scoffed at. There's, TV shows dedicated to this. It's very manly. But if you know that Steve Rogers, Captain America, attempted to lift the hammer in Age of Ultron, but actually moved it a little bit and then actually threatened Thor, and Thor, if you know those kinds of details, then you're a nerd. But somehow you apply that same type of fandom to sports, you're cool. But if you know that Tobey Maguire Spider-Man shot organic web slingers versus the I was going to say Tom Hardy, but the Spider-Man. Why can't I remember Tom's name? I can't remember names anymore. Tom Holland, like the state, like the part of the region of the Netherlands called Holland. Okay, now I'll never forget. But if you know those kinds of details, mechanical web shooters versus liquid web shooters, how many times Doctor Strange was mentioned in the MCU, you're a nerd. But if you know those other stats, you're a hero. But the strategy that Norman Schwarzkopf applied effectively in the original Gulf War was ingenious, guys. It was just insane. Because I mentioned this before on the show, but I don't imagine that you watch every show, but there was the Iraqis were lined up against the border of Kuwait, right? And the Iraqis were invading Kuwait. So they just expected us to come back up through the border and face them head to head. However, Iraq borders Saudi Arabia all on this side. So what the United States did, Norman Schwarzkopf's order as the general, we invaded Iraq from the side and then came from behind, like in Star Wars. It came from behind. And then from Kuwait, we sandwiched them. We made an Iraqi sandwich out of the Republican Guard. So they just said, "Oh, let's just put our guns on the ground now." They were charging at us, and then they looked behind them, and they were like, "Oh, we're surrounded. We give up. We ain't gonna win this one." And that's a very Sun Tzu type of approach. Know when to fold them. It's not only Sun Tzu, it's Kenny Rogers. You got to know when to hold them. You got to know when to fold them. And that's when they folded, and we won. But for some reason, we have a president currently that doesn't know any of this stuff. He can't. He's incapable. I'm going to teach you guys all about how narcissistic personality disorders work. If you're still getting frustrated by the things that the president says, it might turn into a fun game to just guess what he's about to say on account of him being only ever able to abide accordingly to his narcissistic personality disorder. So what he does is he clearly just only has one function and one function only, and it's, how does this affect me? How does this war affect me? Let's catch up on some of this. Even if the president, I saw today the president went to military, the one in D.C. or in Virginia, military graveyard. Just look at that through the lens of him thinking, how does this make me look good? How does this make me potentially look bad? What am I getting out of this? That's the only thing he ever thinks. And it becomes a fun game rather than frustrating if you just look at him and go, All he's ever thinking is, does this affect me? That's the only, and don't get mad, because he's never going to change. That will never change. He's just being who he is. It's sad, I know, but y'all will get less frustrated if you just play the game and go, okay, this reporter just asked him if he feels responsible for the delayed closing down of this country. Now, the key there is he was asked if he is responsible for something bad. Now let's play the game. Narcissistic personality disorder says, no, I'm not responsible for anything that's bad. Anything that's good, they'll take credit for. So let's play the game. So the country seems to be flattening the curve in some spots. Yes, that's because of me, because I did that. It's really, really easy, and it's fun, and it'll make you less frustrated. Let's catch up with Will. Okay, of the plans that the Pentagon draws up, preemptively, in the event of war, the one for Iran required attack. Okay, yeah, we covered that. Cheney stepped down from Halliburton to assume the vice presidency, and of course they were awarded the majority of contracts of rebuilding your oil infrastructure. That is absolutely correct. Guys, look that up. It's very true. He said, I am CEO of a company, but I'm going to magically, you might also remember this detail about Cheney, is that he is from Texas also, and George W. Bush was the governor of Texas at the time. But, as the rules have it, when picking a vice president, if you are the nominee, or the presumptive nominee to be president, you cannot pick a resident of your own state. Interesting fact. 11 months before the election, less than 1 year before the 2000 election, Dick Cheney switched his residence from Texas to Wyoming. That's how people knew that he was going to run. They were like, oh, so you're just at the last second not from the same state in the union? Really funny. Fun stuff, guys. Corrupt as fudge. You know what's funny about Dick Cheney? He's still alive. That's hilarious. That dude probably gnaws on the hearts of infants for breakfast. He seems like a vampire. I guarantee you he drinks the blood of children. We're just talking about Dick Cheney, folks. I guarantee you, there's no way. I think he's on his 15th heart, and that was just for breakfast and lunch. Dude has had an artificial heart. He's got like 2 heart transplants. That dude is still alive. It's 20 years later. He was not expected to live much longer. If you watch the movie Vice, it's pretty funny because he's like, oh, I'm having a heart attack. I'm having another heart attack. I'm having a heart attack. That dude is made of heart attacks. During the Afghan war, we consistently were hands off with Pakistan. They insisted Bin Laden was hiding in the caves and the mountains, and they're effing it. Yeah, it's just so much gobbledygook, guys. And if you remember in the movie Zero Dark 30, they go in, and it's a really intense movie, and it's really fantastic, and it's a great fictional depiction of as if they actually were to kill Osama Bin Laden. Guys, I have a very strong opinion on the fact that I think Osama Bin Laden had been dead already for years. Unlike Dick Cheney. I think Dick Cheney has been dead. He's just a vampire. But in the movie, it's really intense. It's really cool. The movie Vice was pretty good, except I did get... That Vice is the movie where Christian Bale gains like all the weight and shaves his head and becomes Dick Cheney and has a way of talking that gets really, really kind of grates on your nerves after a while. But I think it was very intentional. That movie was directed by Adam McKay, who, as you know, is a very good comedy director and a creative partner with Will Ferrell. But I don't think Osama Bin Laden... Guys, this is my thoughts and my thoughts only, and this is my opinion because it's my show. But I think Osama Bin Laden had been dead for years or for a while. And here's the play. Here's the play if you're Obama in 2010, wherever it was when we killed Osama bin Laden. Here's the play. Dig this. Okay, I say there's an enemy, and this is the face of the enemy. The United States, it's hard for us to go to a war that's conceptual. We need like a bad guy. And this has always been the case. We need a bad guy. We need a Hitler. We need someone who is like the face of the enemy. And for years and years, it was Osama Bin Laden, but they kind of, George W. Bush smokescreened and tried to make it Saddam Hussein. We went ahead straight up and murdered that guy, got rid of him. That is on video. Apparently the Osama Bin Laden video exists too, but notice they never showed us any actual clear photos or anything of Osama. Like, this is literally what we saw of Osama Bin Laden, guys. Him, like, watching a TV. This is how much we saw. Yeah, well, that's definitely Full Throttle right there. Oh, yeah, we can definitely see him there. My hair's matted. Guys, you can't sit there and tell me that with no doubt that is the guy that you say it is. You can't convince me of that, because it just, then show me an actual picture of him. That's the only video that ever existed of Osama Bin Laden after the fact, after like 2004. Guys, it's like 6 years, no video evidence of this guy. And then they're like, yeah, look, it's him. See? Look, it's me. It's the only shot. Google it, guys. It's hilarious. They show this one video of him watching himself on TV. And it could be any dude with like a beard from that region. It's kind of funny. So now here's what I think politically how it works out. Because if I'm the president, Obama inherits a war in 2008, and now it's 2010, and we're still fighting this war. And one of Obama's promises is we're going to get out of this Afghanistan war. We're going to get out of these wars. We're going to peel it back. But the Al Qaeda guys, run by Osama bin Laden, are like, hey, Osama bin Laden's our leader. And he says, and he is still alive. We promise. So now all these underlings are like, our leader still is alive and still hates America, and he is the face of the enemy to you, and we stand behind him because he's definitely still alive. We promise. Now, if we're doing Sun Tzu in the Art of War, and we're Barack Obama, President Obama in 2010, and I'm working with my Joint Chiefs of Staff, and I'm like, and they're all like, hey, President Obama, this dude Bin Laden, he's dead. He done been dead. He's dead but for years. So what we can do is kill him as our enemy, as the face of our enemy. We can go ahead and kill Osama bin Laden because he's dead. So we can end this war by symbolically saying that we went ahead and killed this guy. I mean, if anything, this is a good idea for a movie, guys. It's like kind of a wag the dog situation. Literally, because Wag the Dog was also an Osama bin Laden operation. But we could say, look, they're saying he's still alive. We happen to know he's not. This is the American Joint Chiefs of Staff with the president saying, and going, we happen to know he's not alive. So we could just make up this heroic mission, say that we killed him, and they can't dispute it. They can't dispute it at all. We just played their hand. We played them. You could say, hey, guys, oh, yeah, he's still alive? Okay, well, we just sent in 24 people and we just killed him. And then they could be like, no, you didn't. And then we could say, then prove it. We checkmate, guys, checkmate. How is that for a strategy? I think that's the greatest strategy. It's a very smart one. Makes us win that war, in a sense, even though we haven't. Because it kills, it takes away that face of the enemy. It takes away the power in the public sphere. And it says, hey, it's a definitive win for the American people to X out public enemy number one. I'd like to hear your thought on that. I think that would be a great movie, kind of a wag the dog movie. Wag the Dog, directed by Barry Levinson, guys. Remember Barry Levinson directed Rain Man? What a great movie that is. Still holds up. I think Rain Man's a fantastic movie. I like the way they really kind of bring the idea of autism and savantism to, there's like there might be a few cringy moments in that movie by today's standards, but you got to remember, before that, people weren't really engaged with the concept of mental illness in mainstream movies and stuff like that, or at least accepting of it, of people with different challenges in life in that way anyway. But Barry Levinson directed Wag the Dog. Wagen Sie Doggen. That's the German dubbed one. I could speak German totally fluently. I know 3 things in German. I know this one. I know Kartoffelchips sind aus Menschen gemacht. That means potato chips are made of people. I know another thing in German. It is Öl und Essig für meinen Salad bitte, which is oil and vinegar for my salad, please. And I know the most important one, which, I use this almost daily whenever I'm in Germany, which has not ever been yet, but I will, I promise, which is Nein, das ist ein Bleistift, which means no, it's a pencil. So thank you. I've actually used that accordingly when I was talking to someone with German. I know another one too. Schieß den Finster. Shoot the glass. I learned that from watching Die Hard. So between that and Obama roasting Trump, the White House Correspondents' Dinner that year, the narcissist in chief hate really revved up. Yes, Will. You got to remember, yeah, I agree with you, Tatiana Wilkinson. He's so evil, for sure. I got to tell you something. We're going to go deep into like this narcissistic thing that the president has. It's a problem. It's a problem. And if you know anybody like this, and I've known a few people like this, and you've got to just get rid of them. You've got to like avoid them, put up boundaries because they don't understand the concept of boundaries, and just stick by your boundaries and get as far away as you can. These people thrive on your energy. They thrive on crossing your boundaries. And those are people that you do not deserve in life. You deserve better than that. You deserve whole people. These are broken, damaged, incomplete human beings. It's sad. It's a very sad thing. But the president's just going to be that forever. That's who he is. So we can't get mad at him anymore. We just got to get rid of him. Got to put up a boundary. Got to get him out the White House. Got to take away his power by voting him out. And he won't go away. I mean, this current president wasn't even planning on being president. He was planning on these 4 years, him just standing outside the White House, creating spectacles for the president, who likely would have been Hillary Clinton had it not been for a few last-minute problems. But I tell you, movies, man, I love them. I love these movies. I love Catherine Bigelow movies are the best, I think, in the last 20 years. Best war movies, if you want to watch them. The best kind of real, gritty feeling. You're in that zone. You're trying to understand what it's like to live in that world types of movies. Saving Private Ryan, great movie. That was when Steven Spielberg became not just an entertainment director. He had done Schindler's List, and he did Saving Private Ryan. You might know Steven Spielberg has an affinity for that because he's a boomer. Okay, boomer. For his father's generation, which was the World War II generation. And most of his movies, not most of them, but a lot of his movies take place around or have something to do with World War II. Even Close Encounters of the Third Kind, my favorite Steven Spielberg movie, takes place partly during World War II. There's a missing, they miss a whole fleet of planes from World War II, and then they actually discover them, and they're like, these guys have been missing for like 30 years. And they haven't aged a day. What's going on? Another cool wrinkle about that movie. Really cool. Of course, well then, traveling at light speed, Einstein was right. Yeah, Einstein was right. We still haven't figured out why Einstein is right, but he is still. Everything we keep figuring out, everything we learn about science and the universe and physics just only says, yeah, those guys, Einstein and Newton, were right. Even though they like came up with two independent sort of explanations of reality, they're both right. Our brains are too feeble to wrap around this universe. This universe is just, it's not for us to comprehend, I don't think, ultimately. But it's for us to try. And the way we try as human beings is we use movies and storytelling and music and film and art. This is how we convey the meaning of life to each other. This is how we convey meaning and try to create an order to this chaos that is the universe. We provide small, neat little stories that called movies that are 90 minutes to 2 hours that tell us, look, all of these events happened and they happened for this reason, and that makes us feel comfortable. Argo. Remember Argo, guys? I don't know if that's much of a military movie, but I didn't really like Argo that much. Go F yourself. I liked the characters. I liked the vibe of it, and it felt right. It felt good. Except, guys, come on, Argo, nothing really happens in that movie. And I'll tell you why I think that. Nothing really happens in Argo, because dig this. You got the character played by Ben Affleck. It's also directed by Ben Affleck. He was robbed by Best Director nomination, whatever, for that year, but he did win Best Picture. And he was a producer on it. So he got an Oscar, his second Oscar, I believe, after Good Will Hunting. Who would have thought Ben Affleck was the smart one from Good Will Hunting? Everybody just assumed that Matt Damon was the smart one, going around being the talented Mr. Ripley, being all these geniuses in all his movies, being Will Hunting from Good Will Hunting, being the main character, the titular character, Matt Damon being the sidekick. Clearly hit Ben Affleck being the sidekick. Clearly Ben Affleck in that movie, every scene that he's in, mostly felt improvised or written by him, kind of just jokey and pal and chummy, but Ben Affleck turned out to be the true talent of the two of them. His movies are great. Ben Affleck plays Tony Mendez in Argo, guys, but nothing happens in that movie, and I'll tell you why. He says, oh my God, I got this crazy plan. I'm going to say that we're going to go to Iran and rescue these hostages because we're making a movie, right? Oh my God, this is what I can't believe. Like, how are they ever going to approve this? How are they ever going to, this is going to be crazy. And then, of course, Tony Mendez, played by Ben Affleck, goes into Alan Arkin's studio and he's like, will you ever, this is crazy. And then Alan Arkin goes, okay, let's do it. Next scene. Okay, so nothing happened. There was no defeat. There was just the thought that it may not work. Now Tony Mendez is like, well, I've got the approval. Now I've just got to go convince the higher-ups in the military to make this plan. Seems crazy. Nobody's going to go for this. Nobody will ever want this to happen. This seems like insurmountable of a task to convince the United States military to do this ruse, this elaborate ruse to get these hostages. And then he goes up to the higher-ups and they go, okay, sure. Yeah, let's do that. You want to rescue the people with a fake movie? Okay. Go ahead. So then you're like, all right. So far, huge, insurmountable obstacles are easily surmounted through this movie. And then the movie continues this way for the whole movie. Then Tony Mendez goes and sees the hostages and he's like, okay, we got to get through this marketplace without getting noticed, all right? Now this is Iran. You guys are hostages. There are people, there are eyes and ears everywhere. We got to get through from one side of this marketplace to the other without getting noticed one bit. And then they're shooting the scene and then they're all walking through the crowd and then the crowd is shouting because people are just they're bartering and they're trading. It's a marketplace. It's busy. It's hustling and bustling. And then they just shoot it in a way, and then they're intensifying the music, and the hostages are all looking at each other, and they're walking through the crowd. And what do? They make it through the crowd to the other side. Nothing happens. Nothing happens to them. They don't get noticed. They don't get killed. They make every obstacle that is set up in any type of task or motivation that is set up in Argo is easily completed with just dramatization. And the only thing that was just completely ridiculous to me, I was losing my mind when I was watching it. I go, so far nothing happens in this movie, but now they're at the airport and they literally have to get on a plane and then take off on the plane from the airport, right? Like this. I just did some 3D action here, guys. Look at that. That is called science and mechanics and optics. They have to get on a plane. These hostages have to get on a plane and leave Iran for good to the rescue. And what do? They get on a plane and leave. However, it is the climax of the movie to which Ben Affleck said, this is the climax of the movie. We need to create a situation that seems insurmountable. Why don't we get a whole bunch of Iran soldiers on a runway on the back of a pickup truck with missile launchers trying to take down the plane, but they fail miserably. So every obstacle that is set up in the movie Argo doesn't do anything but to create some kind of tension for the audience viewing. However, if you look at the movie functionally, Ben Affleck says, I need to go into Iran under the guise that I'm making a film, and then I'm going to rescue the hostages this way. And then he does that easily. He just goes and just does it. Everything else, it's as if like I was making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. In the beginning, I'm making the sandwich, and at the end, I'm eating the sandwich. But during me making the sandwich, there was a ninja hiding outside my window with a katana ready to chop my head off. Yet there's like nobody, just the camera outside is just filming me making the sandwich. So that dramatizes me making a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. However, it doesn't really affect the fact that I've satisfied my hunger and desire to eat peanut butter and jelly. I hope you like that analogy. Guys, I got to tell you, we can't leave this hour without talking about Glory. Thank you for mentioning that, Tatiana Wilkinson. Apocalypse Now, Platoon, 1917. I want to see 1917. That was that's the latest movie that was cinematography by Roger Deakins. Apparently that entire movie is one shot. Obviously they're all stitched together, but it's one extended shot. I cannot wait to see that. I really did want to see that in theaters. I almost saw it in 4DX, but it's hard to coordinate times with friends and stuff. And then, when the world shuts down, it's definitely harder. Yes, Will, Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima are two Clint Eastwood movies that were released months apart. One from the American side of the Battle of Iwo Jima in World War II, and then the other, the same battle, but from the Japanese perspective. And I think that that's an actual even-handed, cool way to look at the war, because nobody is right, nobody's wrong. Everybody's just fighting for their own interests in those situations. Whatever they think they might be. They're struggling for power. They're struggling for position in the world. They're struggling to exist, or they're struggling to conquer. It's weird. War is stupid. Unless it's Star Wars. I think war movies should only ever be in movies. War should only ever be in movies. It should be vicariously lived out through sports and movies and not in practice. I think it's a bygone thing that is in human nature, and we should eliminate it entirely just by vicariously experiencing it through games, sports, and movies, and not in real life. Is this Will? I saw Platoon once, and that was enough. Love or trauma depicted. Yeah, that movie is really intense, man. Platoon, I remember this scene. That scene. Get shot in the back. Willem Dafoe. It's amazing. Amazing movie. Remember Casualties of War? Yeah, that's a good one. Got Michael J. Fox in it. That was when Michael J. Fox was He's America's sweetheart for a Canadian, but it's funny because he played a war guy, and it was kind of hard to watch Back to the Future kid in a war movie. It was really hard. It's a tough one. That's a tough one. Oh yeah, Missing in Action. Those were good. And Delta Force. Argo is a heist movie, except I guess, yeah, maybe we'll do heist movies this week, tomorrow. I know, I gotta see 1917. The only reason why I didn't see 1917 was there's no good reason for I didn't see it. I actually was planning on seeing it in 4DX because I was like, I haven't seen this movie yet, but I do want to experience it in the theater. How about I experience it in 4DX? If you don't know what 4DX is, it's when you're sitting on a chair, the chair moves around like this, and you're doing all these kinds of moves, and and your soda flies into your face while you try to drink it. Also, there's light shows, there's smoke, there's mist, there's fans that turn on that blow your hair back. It's actually really fun. I saw The Last Jedi in 4DX, and when you were on planet Octu with Luke, there was lightning flashing in the theater, mist, and fans blowing, so it felt like you were really blowing around on Octu. It wasn't too cold. Hey, Mike, what's up? We're just talking about war movies, and of course, I just mentioned Star Wars every day because technically it's a war movie. Yeah, Missing in Action. Missing in Action does have it has Chuck Norris, and Chuck Norris, of course, fought Bruce Lee. Famously fought Bruce Lee. That was an exciting movie. Oh man, maybe we'll just talk about Bruce Lee movies on one show, but I remember being a kid and seeing the climax of... Which movie was that with Bruce Lee? There's 3 movies that Bruce Lee made. And Chuck Norris... Return of the Dragon. Yeah. When I saw that movie, when Bruce Lee and Chuck Norris finally fight each other, that was ridiculous. I nearly lost my mind. That little cat being the referee, little kitten, and they were fighting each other, and I was like, uh-oh, Chuck gonna get it now, though, even though it was a close fight. Chuck Norris, the only person ever to be killed by Bruce Lee in a spectacular fashion, I guess besides Enter the Dragon and all those other movies where Bruce Lee murders people. Fantastic. Fantastic movie. That is an epic battle. I recommend you guys watch that. I'm going to play... I have it queued up because in 5 minutes I'm going to watch that whole fight scene while I make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and a ninja waits outside my window. 4DX sounds like torture. It is kind of torturous, but if you've seen the movie 6 times already, like I did with The Last Jedi, it's actually quite fun. It impacted the scene in The Last Jedi on the planet, the salt planet. Why can't I ever remember? Crate. On the planet Crate. That scene was so much cooler. I remember watching that scene several times before that, and it kind of shifted the vibe of the whole movie, although it is incredibly epic when Luke Skywalker walks out those blast doors. I'm telling you, that is one of the greatest shots in all of Star Wars. In all of the 3 movies that are Star Wars movies. There's only about 3 or 4 of them, I think. Good ones, anyway. When he walks through those blast doors, that image of Luke going to face down the First Order, like he says early in the movie, he's like, I'm not going to do that. He goes ahead and does it, and it's incredible. Yeah, that chest hair removal was great. Bruce Lee rips Chuck Norris's chest hair out. Whew. So good. What a great fight scene. Chuck Norris, though still alive, did not get killed by aspirin like Bruce Lee, apparently. Bruce Lee, man, just think of like the levels of fitness that guy achieved, yet died of a simple brain swelling. And it's that's how precious life is, guys. So be careful. We got a minute left on the Instagram feed, so I'm going to wrap it up with you guys. You guys can hop over to Aristotle Full Throttle if you want to finish up with this discussion. Probably be another few minutes, but thank you, and join me every day on Instagram, soon to be on Twitch and TikTok, guys. All streaming live at the same time. It's going to be crazy. We're going to lose our minds talking about all these war movies, but please have a I guess, somber Memorial Day. Don't have a somber Memorial Day. Have a reflective Memorial Day. Reflexive. Look inward. Look inside. Think about other people. Care about other people. Imagine what it's like to be them. Imagine what it's like to go to war. And be thankful that you don't have to, and all you have to do is stay 6 feet away from people and wear a mask. That's easy. You're not going to war, but you are being a hero. I'm Aristotle Full Throttle, and I'll see you guys tomorrow on Instagram. So, guys, on YouTube, yeah, we're gonna wrap up the war movies, but I gotta check out 1917. I might even go ahead and watch that tonight. Like, I've been watching. Just jumped back on the Ozark bandwagon, so I'm gonna catch up with Ozark. Just finished up season 1, I'm on to season 2, an episode into season 2, and it's a good show, intense. I actually worked with Esai Morales, interesting guy. He plays no spoilers, but he plays kind of like one of the bad guys, one of the higher ups in Ozark. And I worked with him. He's an interesting guy. Just right before Ozark came out, too. About 4 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. And Esai Morales, he's a cool guy. He's a nice guy. He's the guy from, you remember La Bamba? He's my brother, man. You know, anyway. Esai Morales, incredible American actor, Mexican-American actor from freaking classic movies now, guys. Esai, he's been around for freaking a long time, and he's a great actor. He's really good. Yeah, someone should redub the part with Steve Carell yelling Kelly Clarkson. Yeah, that's a good one. 40-Year-Old Virgin is a classic. It's almost a classic. In about 4 years, it'll be a classic. Isn't that insane? How crazy is that? 40-Year-Old Virgin in the Alligator F House and all of these other terms. Man, oh man, just for jokes and giggles. I wanted to finish up that story about Sun Tzu and the Art of War and how I would play video games using the Art of War and actually win. So if you guys have the chance to, 2 things that are most important in life, I think. Using your head and using your gut. And also, using your head and your gut to imagine the experience of other people other than yourself. If something were to happen to you, how would you feel? So try to understand how other people feel. It's the most important thing. This is what I've been preaching since day one on this channel. And I think we should all... This world would be a much better place, and we'd probably be in a much better position regarding this coronavirus if we were to be a little bit more empathic, and had a little bit more creative thinking and critical thinking. But for instance, when I was using the Art of War, there's something in the Art of War Sun Tzu mentions that you should find your enemy's weak spot and exploit it. If your enemy, they're very simple. There's like 10 rules. There's 10 or 12 rules to the Art of War. Each one he goes into specifically and how they work. But there's very few rules. It's a very short book, but it helps with diet, exercise, interpersonal relationships, career. It helps with all of those things. It's thousands of years old. So when I would create a boxer for EA Sports Boxing, or if I were to play Madden, I would just explain. It seems like a cheap move, but I don't really like sports. I mentioned that earlier. Sports. I don't do sports too good. I'm not sports. Hey, sports guys. Hey, we go play tennis, eh? We play sport. So I would just play the games. I would pick like a quarterback. At the time, before we understood that Michael Vick was a horrible, evil, dog torturing person, I would use the Falcons, and I would take Michael Vick and I would just fake punt almost on every play, or I would fake field goal, or I would do a 2-point conversion all the time. Because you pass it to Michael Vick, he could run through the holes and then just score touchdowns, or pass really far and score touchdowns. So I was just like, how do I score the most points as possible? So I would play Madden like a video game, And my friends would play Madden like it was actual football because they love football. They're like, oh, you know what would be a good play? If it's the 4th down, we should probably punt, especially if we're like got 10 or so yards to go. This seems like a punt. And I would just be like, no, I'm going to fake punt on the 1st down and run the ball through the hole and gain yards and score touchdowns because that's how you win. And I did that mostly just to annoy them because they would want someone to play against because nobody was playing. And I'm like, all right, what is this, sports? I'll play the sports. How do I win? Oh, I win more by scoring more goals? Let me do that. And they would get so mad because I didn't like football. They were like, you don't even watch football. And I'm like, yeah, but somehow I'm winning at this video game. I would do that with boxing. I remember I had a boxer who I created, and he didn't really have a good punch. He didn't really have a good jab, but I noticed that I had a long reach. So as long as I could keep my distance and jab the whole fight, I would win. It just through jabbing for about 45 minutes of left jabbing. I wouldn't get into it because I'd be like, if I get hit a few times, I'm going to go down. I don't want to go down. I want to find my enemy's weakness and exploit it. I want to use my advantages to my advantage. This is the art of war, guys. If your enemy thinks you are strong, convince them that you are weak. If your enemy thinks you are weak, convince them you are strong. Very simple axioms that we can all follow. If your enemy thinks you are far away, convince them you are near. If your enemy thinks you are near, convince them that you are far away. Super logical. It's very good for playing chess. It's very good at winning at video games. I highly recommend it. It's very good at winning at life. I played like Bill Belichick, yes. I don't even know. I know that name. I know the name of Bill Belichick's. Bill Belichick's. Oh, wait, Patriots, right? I catch these things through osmosis. Yeah, we should do that overdub of, like, you probably do that on TikTok of Chuck Norris getting his chest hair ripped out. Well, guys, I think we've covered all of the movies by talking about how it is dumb. We're talking about war strategies, guys. War strategy. The strategy for war is to never have to do it. We should never go to war for any reason other than to protect ourselves, protect an existential threat against the United States. And guess what? Coronavirus is an existential threat, and we need to do our part. It's very simple. I'm pretty cynical, and I say, well, if we're leaving this up to people to solve, then that's the problem. That's what's going to make us lose. We're leaving this coronavirus situation up to people to fix. I don't know. So let's come together. Let's be smart about this, ladies and gentlemen. Let's be inspired. The art of war, but not good for movies all the time. Yes. Yeah. The Art of War. I'm trying to think. I think that is a movie. Isn't it a movie? I don't know. But I think it's important that we don't underestimate the enemy. Never underestimate your enemy. Always assume, so again, the art of war. Always assume your enemy is the strongest. So you have to find the weak spot. The weak spot of this virus, the weak spot of this whole situation is that if it can't be around people, if it can't be in the same airspace with other people, that's its weakness. So we just have to keep exploiting that. Just exploit the one weakness. That's the one weakness it has right now. Just stay away. Stay 6 feet away with a mask on. Both. I was just having this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen, I have a Tatiana and Will, I should say. I've been having conversations with people who are like, "Oh man, it is so difficult to understand what's going on right now. I can't even find any information on it." Which, to then, I eagerly supply them with information because I think it's almost unavoidable the amount of information that's out there. So we need to really be on top of it, or at least just acknowledge how science works and how numbers works and how statistics works. Because this virus just doesn't care if you're a Republican, doesn't care if you're a Democrat. It just cares if you have lungs. That's it. It's like, do you have lungs though? The president is taking hydroxychloroquine, but he's not, who knows what the heck that guy is doing ever. He's just a liar. He's a malignant narcissist, and we'll get into more of that in further episodes of the show. But like that ability that he has to lie is that's one of his greatest talents. It's because he doesn't have any compunction about lying. He doesn't have any feeling about it. It's just, if I'll just say these words and then people will react in a way that I want them to, or don't want them to, it doesn't matter. I don't care. How does this affect me? You ask me a question, I'm a malignant narcissist. You ask me any question, I'm like, what are the words that I have to say that will put me in the best light or make me feel the best? And that's the only way they ever think. It's a problem. It's a problem. You just got to walk away from it, because you got to break the wrist and walk away. Grab my hand, my other hand. No, your other hand. You think I'm a loser because I go home to Darla every night? Just break the wrist and walk away. Break the wrist and walk away. I'm quoting a movie. You know which movie. You know which movie. Okay. If you don't, it's probably one of the funniest movies, and still is. But Dunkirk, that was a good one. Oh, I'm excited for Tenet, the next movie by Christopher Nolan. He did Dunkirk, and Dunkirk was a pretty good movie. It was like notoriously, Christopher Nolan has very long run times for his movies. Over 3 hours, almost all of them over 3 hours. But people are like, Dunkirk, 90 minutes, in and out, done, Kirk. We're done here. We're done, Kirk. He's dead, Kirk. Dunkirk, in and out, done. People were like, remarkable that Christopher Nolan made such a quick movie that it comes and it goes and it's over. But no, he's back to true form, because Tenet is 3 hours, 20 minutes right now. The total running time is at 3 hours, 20 minutes. That movie looks phenomenally interesting. It's got the mini Denzel Washington in it. Tiny Denzel Washington. I call him Tiny Denzel because he is Denzel Washington's son, but he's a lot smaller. That guy has to be about 3 feet tall. Not that I'm a heightist, but I think it's funny because Denzel Washington looks like a regularly proportioned human being, and his son looks like a tiny little. He looks like an action figure. He looks like he's a tiny little man, but he's a good actor. I do like what's his name? Adina Menzel Washington. But he is good. He's on the come up. I mean, I wonder why he's a famous actor. It's not like his father. I don't know. How do we get this far and not talk about Glory? We're going to talk about Glory for 5 more minutes, and then I'm going to go. Good golly. Sorry, we're like 13 minutes over, but I'm on fire today. Maybe we'll just dedicate this whole week to Glory. Glory is an incredible film, and it's an incredible performance by Denzel Washington. I think his greatest performance. Incredible performance. I just get choked up thinking about it right now when Denzel Washington, oh my God, I can't even say it. But the scene where he's being disciplined as a soldier is like one of the greatest moments on film. It is such a deep wound in America's history. It's such a deep cut to feel that pain, to see that pain, to see someone who is giving their life potentially to this country to be treated in such a manner is a travesty and horror, one of the horrors of the United States history. And watching that movie gets me choked up every time, because people forget that this country was literally built on the blood, sweat, tears, and hands and the efforts of all Americans, particularly those who were forced to be Americans, those who were brought here from Africa, those who created and built this country brick by brick, put the labor in for free. It cost many lives, human lives, lost to build this country that we seem to forget and that we seem to not appreciate on the daily. Guys, we need to it really needs to be in the forefront of our consciousness as a culture, how our country, the difference, the wealth disparity, the disparity in this whole country, and how people don't realize that hundreds of years of oppression and segregation and slavery, hundreds of years of that just doesn't get undone in, I don't know, I guess according to a lot of people, that 2008 when Obama was elected, because he's half black, his father's African, his mother's from a white lady from Kansas. We're getting there. People think that, oh, well, since 2008, the United States is it's a post-racist society. It's not, guys. Society is very racist, especially American society. It is just built in, it's baked in, and it just doesn't get undone. If you sit there and say, okay, none of your fathers, your grandfathers, your great-grandfathers, none of them were ever allowed to own property or have wealth, but you are now, so go ahead. Why can't you compete on the level of, say, a European descendant who lives in America, who has generations of property ownership and wealth that they could pass down, and social status that they can inherit, versus someone who has just been afforded that right within the last, if you look at the frickin' the state constitution of Mississippi and Alabama, basically just outlawed slavery on their state constitutions, included that in their state. Oh yeah, 1999? In 1999 is when Mississippi officially said, oh yeah, we think slavery's bad, we shouldn't do that. Officially. Wrote it in their state constitution. They officially outlawed it. So up until 1999, and there are funny things on the internet about this, actually. Michael Moore did a show in the 90s before this, noting that the state constitution of Mississippi still did not outlaw slavery, or it might have been Alabama. So one of the comedians on the show happens to be named Rusty Cundiff. He's a black guy. He's in a great movie called Fear of a Black Hat. Watch that movie. It is hilarious. Rusty Cundiff took a bunch of European Americans, white guys, and then chained them up and then made them do yard work. And then he took them to the police station. And he's like, these are my slaves. Just so you know, this is perfectly legal in Mississippi. I've got 12 slaves here. They're going to do my yard work indefinitely. I thought that was hilarious. Yeah. Glory is incredible. I remember that movie just being, as far as acting with Morgan Freeman always being an older guy. It's so funny how Morgan Freeman is always, he was born a 75-year-old wise man. They'd rather want it to go away than to admit it's wrong. Racist America has as apple pie. Yes, absolutely, Jesse Lockhart. Thank you for mentioning that. Yeah, they want it to just be evaporate into the ether as if it wasn't a thing. But it's a daily thing. It's a daily thing. If you're brown, black, not white in America, you are aware of that. And if you're not aware of that, you're made aware of that. So a lot of people in this country, in particular, walk around not thinking twice. But a lot of us brown and black folks gotta got to think twice. Got to be made aware of the social history. Everything is loaded when you go somewhere in this country. In this country, everything is loaded. Everything is, you're ready to combat prejudices. You're ready to combat false notions about you. I mean, and if you're not, you're conditioned in a way in this country to have like all sorts of like there's a certain like expectation. There's certain preconceived notions that you have to overcome sometimes, a lot of times. And that's just America. That's the American experience. And on this Memorial Day, if we can remember those who have fought for this country, like the folks in glory who fought during the Civil War for the Union, there were many black Americans who fought in that war that we just did not think about or care. It's like newly freed folks were like, okay, well, now I'm free. I might as well fight for the country because I don't have a job. There's no jobs for us. And we're basically being drafted to fight for this country that has freed us. So not only did we have to live the first part of our life in slavery, we had to die fighting in a war for people that have enslaved us. Totally effed up. Totally effed up. But I think it's important that we recognize that the ideal that was this country, that I think we're still far, far from, the ideal for a more perfect union. We're trying to create a more perfect union every day. And every day, I feel like we're getting further from that right now, to be honest, but it's not that it started perfect and it always is perfect and it will always be perfect, and if it changes, then it's less perfect. No, we have to make a more perfect union. And this social changes we have made gradually over this time and still have far to go. And if people don't think we have far to go, just think about the experience of other Americans. Think about the experience of someone who is of color in this country. Think about what it's like for people like us in this country. We're very aware of it every moment. Any moment we leave the house, we go out the door, we're aware of it. Just think about what that's like. Anybody out there listening who perhaps isn't of color or a minority or a woman, women think about this all the time. They think about walking down the street, what it's like for them to walk down the street and potentially be victimized. Whereas someone like me, I'm 6'3", I'm brown. I'm like, all right, well, I'm walking down the street at night. I need to keep my distance from people because perhaps they might think I'm a threat. And I have to think about that. Yeah. Your dad was the director of military funeral honors at our national cemetery here. Very humbling how many of my peers' fathers served and made little of it. You wouldn't even know it if it wasn't time of the internet, the internment, of their internment. Yeah. There's so many people that fight for this country that we need to. Every time I see someone who's fought for this country, thank them. Because that is no small task. That is no small service. That is the greatest service you can give publicly, is your life, potentially. And let's not forget those people. Let's remember all of the people that fight for this country. Let's remember why it's important for us to remember them. Because we don't want things like this to happen over and over again. Thank you guys for joining me. I will see you tomorrow. Today was a long one, but it's extra long because I think Wednesday, guys, I'm just preparing you. Wednesday, I'm just going to be on Instagram, I think, because I'm going to be driving far away to a secluded beach, hopefully, where there won't be many people. And until tomorrow, stay safe, wash your hands. I'm Aristotle.